Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bite Size Branding live show, pretty much live show. Um, it's always exciting to jump on, and we have an awesome guest with us today. But as always, I'd like to welcome Grant Tom, my right-hand man. And our special guest today is Daniel Adolf from visiting us from the OC, Orange County. And Daniel is the director and owner of Dino Creative. And he's jumping on the show today to give us a real insight into branding and the brand story. And we're actually going to have a special episode today where we're going to do a couple of brand refresh reviews and give our opinion on how we think they went. But before we jump into that, Grant, my friend, let's give everyone an idea of how the show is going to break down today.
Fantastic, Bernard, and welcome, Daniel. Yeah, well, my name's Grant Tom, and I'm known as the head fire starter of the advertising and marketing industry. And what I like to do is help businesses to get their ideas, create value in their brands, and at the end of the day, create ultimate value for their customers. What's so fantastic about our show is that our guest today is really going to unbundle a lot of his knowledge and expertise from the other side of the world, which is great. And hopefully it's going to be controversial because at the end of the day, that's what we like on the show. We like to unbundle the truth. And the reason why we unbundle the truth and we put a time of 7 minutes is because we don't want to ramble on too long. So we have to beat the clock. It's normally 5 minutes, but when we have a guest of this intensity, we give it 2 minutes just to make sure that we can also budge in a little bit and be able to unlock all the gems that Daniel has to offer. So welcome, Daniel, and over to you, Bernard.
Awesome. Thanks, Grant. Yes, but today is a slightly special show. We're actually going to be doing a couple of reveals of recent rebrands and giving our insight and opinion on what we thought of the rebrand and how we think they executed. So it's going to be a slightly different format, but always exciting, I'm sure. I'm saying that. I hope everyone else feels excited. If you don't feel excited, don't exit, because we need the numbers. So stay on the show. I don't care if you don't like it. Just keep it. Just mute it. I don't care. But before we launch into the show, Daniel, man, thank you very much for joining us. We've had a couple conversations back and forth, and we were, having a bit of a chat before the show kicked off. But before we launch into the first question, give everyone a little bit of an idea of what you guys do over there at Dino Creative.
Yeah, so I mean, the best way to describe ourselves is we evolve brands. We evolve their connection between the brands and their tribes, and we're a small boutique full service agency in Orange County, California, doing everything from, as we're going to talk about today, branding and brand development, all the way to illustration and web development.
Brilliant.
Yeah, cool. And I've seen some of your illustration work and animation work, and it's phenomenal stuff. So if you guys haven't checked it out, just hit up Dino Creative and have a look at what they do. It was really funny. I was actually just having a thought around, okay, how am I going to introduce the first question? And what kind of led to this question was earlier we were having a conversation, and Grant, when we were looking at brand refreshes, and Grant brought up Rolex, and these two guys had a bit of a argy-bargy, and I was going to say, okay, well, Daniel, do you know what an argy-bargy is?
I'm going to guess it's a kerfuffle.
A kerfuffle. That's not a bad way. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. So a little bit of back and forth around their opinion on Rolex, and what kind of evolved from that was essentially this first question that we wanted to kind of unbundle, which is all around brand story, and that a brand is much bigger than the story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys unbundle it more. I'm going to hit the timer, and I'm going to chuck it to you, Grant, and you can kind of position how this all came together from the conversation we had earlier. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm ready. Ready to rock and roll.
The kerfuffle.
So, Daniel, we were talking about Rolex in the sense that every time I see Rolex, be it on the Formula One, be it on the tennis circuit, I always look at the clock and I look at the font and I look at where they're at, and they look like they've been left a little bit behind in the 60s. But at the same time, having said that, their watches that were bought in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s are so valuable today that they are actually tradable tokens in their own right, and they've got so much value. So it is that whole disruption as to when does a brand find that opportunity to tweak and just stay trending, or stay traditional and stay the way they were. If we look at a brand like Bic, which was built in 1953, has never had to change its brand ever in all these years. And the same maybe go for Rolex, but I would love to know why Rolex shouldn't update its brand to be something more iconic, representing iconography. I'd love to understand your exploration of the subject.
Well, I'm not necessarily specifically with Rolex. I am probably the worst person to discuss watches because I just recently got like an Apple Watch. So I'm like, that's the closest I've never been a watch type person.
Mm.
But, we can look at lots of different brands. We can look at Coca-Cola. We can look, we can look at a lot of these different brands that have maybe evolved in little different ways. But the big thing is the idea of a brand update or a brand refresh, is it actually changing the logo or colors or anything like that, or can it just be evolving the other elements of the brand, the voice, the way that they communicate with customers, all of those different things?
Great.
So my question, I guess, to you, Grant, is: do you feel since 1950 have they actually evolved the way that they've spoken to their customers, or has it been the same narrative since day one?
I think there's a lot of their narrative that is the same as day one in the sense of how they build their watch, what their watch is made for, as to who it's made for. I think in that context, it is very much the same. The fact that there is this nuance of youngsters who are striving to buy a 60s watch is where I think the brand is starting to have relevance and revival all over again, and therefore it never really lost its tangible value, but at the same time it's getting its representation back in our face. And so I just looked at it in the sense of its positioning, its styling, and where it is positioned as a sponsor for most of our sporting events. As it looks a little bit outdated when you see it amongst all the others in the sense of our digital age. So I think their value proposition has been the same, and I think that youngsters are now starting to really bring back that old tradition and quality back to the market.
There's definitely a reinsurgence of the vintage, right? That's something they could dovetail off, but that's not a business model. You can't just hang your hat on a trend. Sorry, Daniel, you're gonna jump in. Is it? What are your thoughts on that? Is it the brand story that carries the brand, and what is it about that story that maybe reinforces the brand or reinforces brands in general?
I mean, they haven't, kind of from what you're saying, Grant, it sounds like they haven't necessarily changed their core values.
Yeah.
They haven't changed that. What I'm hearing from you is to maybe reinforce it or show it in a different way. Is how do you position this timeless nature, this something that is going to be valuable forever? And we can go into the same avenue of talking about diamonds. And what is the value? Because we could literally have the rest of the show talking about diamonds and the inflated market that is diamonds. But it's
and that was launched off a marketing campaign. The diamonds are a girl's best friend, and diamonds are forever. Like those are like taglines from marketing campaigns that kind 100%. Of built its value in the market, and now it's become culturally accepted. That is like that's the pinnacle of precious stones.
Well, it's the benchmark, isn't it? It's the expectation that if you're buying someone a diamond, you love them. If someone's receiving a diamond, they loved. It's got that benchmark, but at the same time, no other stone sort of takes its place. So it's sort of the tradition of what would be the acceptable level.
And that's kind of what Rolex has built as well. Its quality and its position in its market, its level of esteem and expectation. Like you buy somebody a Rolex, that's a premium a gift, a premium way of appreciation.
Well, Rolex was the first company that sort of made their second hand smooth, so it didn't like jag and tick. It was a smooth transitioning amount per second. So that's how they transitioned. And then, of course, I think they were one of the first to create a waterproof watch. And so that's what basically was the trend as to how people were able to adapt because of the quality being so superior in their production.
I mean, I had to explain to one of my students recently that the whole thing of the, well, you can't see my hand, the rotating you know,
bezel or the
yeah, because Rolexes and a lot of high quality watches actually don't have a battery in them. They're
That's right.
self-winding
ah,
by movement,
yeah.
and that was mind-blowing to some of my younger students.
Wouldn't it be nice if they made the Apple Watch the same way? Right, right.
Or solar.
Yeah, something, anything, just so you don't have to charge it at the end of the day. I think it's a really interesting conversation, and it's always a hard decision, especially for the larger corporations, to take that leap in making a rebrand. And I actually do want to pop this up, even though we only have a couple more seconds. But you mentioned Burger King previously, and what's really interesting about the Burger King refresh is that it actually went backwards. Which is really interesting. Is it kind of went in a particular direction, and then in 2021, you know, whatever happened at a corporate level, whether they feel like its connection with the public dwindled, or whether its messaging got dilute, they actually brought the original branding back, and that's in, you know, with a little bit of a tweak, but it's quite an interesting evolution of the brand, and how, you know, maybe Rolex as a consideration has looked at refreshing and then gone, well, what is our impact to our market, and what does our name actually represent to our clientele? And that nostalgia factor and that quality factor that they've always represented is iconic with the typography that they use. So I wonder if that leads the decision-making process for Rolex.
I think one of the things is that brands have definitely become less is more. And that was because of the digital drive, in the sense that real estate on a phone from an iconography perspective was so small, hence why the colors were flat, the typography was flat. There was no more like computer digitization sort of allowed in digital applications. So I think that what's important to understand is the simplification of how brands had to transcend into flat colors, bold colors, with a view to create identity, and that's where we're going. We're going to start seeing another change sort of taking place, where things are going to go back to being 3D, drop shadows. But a lot of that sort of coming to the front again. That face, I got you on that face, but yeah, that's sort of where we're going.
I think a lot of gradients. I think a lot of gradients seem to be coming back now.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, we had the range of, and what you're referring to is skeuomorphism, where things look like the thing that they actually are. Like actually, you have your end button there. It would, if we were dealing with skeuomorphism, it would be a flip or an actual press button.
Yeah.
But and that's true skeuomorphism. Now we're getting like almost digital skeuomorphism.
Yeah.
Which still and the update and the change of skeuomorphism, actually the main people that were driving that, the main people that were driving the flat design and the shift away from skeuomorphism was the Windows operating system a few generations ago. But yeah, like now we're getting this new morphism, I think it's being called, which has this elements of realism, and like a little bit of reality.
Yeah.
But it's like still flat. Yeah. It references the idea of real things, but then also it doesn't 100% need to rely on reality like skeuomorphism did. Skeuomorphism, like if there was a button, it needed to be a relatively static button and things like that. And yeah, and the flat design ended up starting to become a real thing, also partially because of the lower operating, like the lower operating costs on phones and things like that, of like putting less rendering. Less rendering and things like that to increase speed.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are we ready to break down some logo rebrands?
I'm ready.
Awesome. we're gonna kick it off with this brand. I'm gonna hit this. Let me see. Oh yeah. Now let's pop over here. Screen share.
Who's our first candidate?
So our first candidate is actually a rebrand which I've quite enjoyed being rolled out onto the market. It's a car brand. You'll all know it as soon as you see it. Is this guy right here, Kia? It's received some mixed feedback. I personally, I'm going to jump in and just start. I really like it. I recognize the faults in the design, but I also really like the Angular application and the consistency of the font and the way it then brands onto the cars and the buildings. I feel like that was really well thought through. And I know as soon as I open this up to you guys, I'm going to hear exactly why it doesn't work. So, and I agree. Daniel, do you want to jump in? And
I mean, if we're going to talk about the things that are successful, they're using that same access point for the K and the slant at the A, but that also becomes its downfall because we get this kin or KN. I think the K is a cool looking K, and even that repeated shape element where it's at the beginning, it's the upside down A and the right side up A, and it's nicely echoed things. It's like, it feels like someone fell in love with type and then forgot how people read.
I agree. Yeah.
I actually, when I first saw it, I thought it was a new car brand to the market because I didn't even make the original association when I first saw it. And then when I realized it was Kia, I was like, oh, great. Wow. That's nice that they actually did something, because not often you see Japanese companies take a leap in their branding. And this is, this is a Korean company, but you don't often see them take a leap. But this is actually like a nice jump forward, I feel. But yes, that's the feedback I'm talking about. A lot of people see a K and a reverse N, or kind of almost a muddled KIN kind of hammering of text. Grant, let's hear it. What do you have?
So I think it was definitely a step forward in the sense that I love the typography. I love the font. I love that they really fell in love with the font and they found the angles and the shape. And I think it really played exceptionally well. And the fact that they got rid of that oval and were able to open it up, I think is great. I think what's missing here is exactly what you mentioned, that we're reading something else than what we meant to read. And I think that's a disservice to the brand. If we had separated the letters just slightly, I think would have helped. But one of the things I noticed definitely is that I saw a Kia car yesterday, and I think the size of the lettering on the car is way too big. I think more is not more. I think less is more. I think if they were just a little bit better sized on the car, I think it would have worked. I appreciate they got rid of the oval, therefore they had to substantiate size, but I just felt it looked like it was shouting, and I don't think it needs to shout because it's that good. But I think it just needs a little bit of a tweak. And if they had to make a tweak, I don't think anyone would notice that these little changes are done. And I think automatically they would see a big difference in perspective as to how people view a particular brand.
Yeah, space the lettering a little bit, and it wouldn't be that much of a revolution to what they've got already. It's not like it's they're throwing the baby out with the bath water,
So with the new brand, do you feel what values do you get from the updated brand? What values do you get from the updated brand?
And actually, funnily enough, I thought that was the way that Grant was going to take this, and I want to jump to the next logo to make sure we have enough time. But I actually thought Grant was going to take it down this road. It's a great question. Now you're hosting the show, just because you're in the middle. So what I think it represents the now more superior quality of the cars. I think the old branding used to feel much lower in quality, not just the quality of the cars, but the brand itself also had that kind of feel to it, that it wasn't really a thought out brand. It was just, they just threw the typography together, put a circle around it like every other car brand, and they just slapped it on the car. Whereas this one feels more thought out, and you actually see the cars kind of feel the same as well. They're much more angular. They're much more modern in style. They're more European in the interior. So I think with the brand, the refresh of the branding itself, it actually tells the story of the next generation of Kia.
Yeah.
I don't know
You
how
want to
it
know what the actual core values are?
Yeah, sure.
Their core values are customer first, addressing challenges, collaboration and communication, people, and globality. Globally.
Those are the lamest and most generic values that
I
So,
agree.
API now
so
You must
maybe
understand.
their first logo was great and perfect for
for how
or maybe
lame
they
they
haven't
are.
updated their core values.
Yeah, they need to update their core values to reflect the new positioning of the brand.
Yeah. You know, they would look like a low-end manufacturer, and they've had to now transcend to be a little bit more upmarket. So that's sort of where it came from.
So
there
another
we go.
typographic refresh, Nokia, which I didn't know these guys are even still hammering along, but we had a good conversation about this just earlier, and I think this is phenomenal. I'm happy to kick it out to you guys, but I love what they've done here. Yeah, jump in.
So,
who's going to take it first?
Because I want to really hear from Daniel, but you know, I love this typography. I love the play of the words. I love the way it plays with your imagination. But the word Nokia, in the sense of you all know it as a communications company, but originally, you know, it was in the paper mill business, and it was because they were in the forestry business. They didn't like the other phones. They went and modified the technology with the Viewspringer, and that's how they sort of came about, and were sort of revolutionary when we came onto the market of mobile phones. But I think that they lost their way a little bit, and other phones with the smartphone technology sort of took them by surprise, and so they found their downfall. But I love the fact that they're coming back with a revival, and I love the fact that they are so transcended in such a novel and modern way. A lot of iconography value is present here, and very iconic in the sense that you will remember it and identify with it and its values, of course.
It's almost a better logo for a tech company than when it was a tech company.
Well, it just shows you how trends have changed and how the previous was pretty good.
I'm not going to listen to this guy. This guy is his band.
Not at all.
Man, we got to hear Daniel's opinion on this and see what you think.
I mean, I'm ready to watch this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fantastic space epic that you know, where somebody obviously dies in space, and it's because of a satellite failure. But luckily, Nokia saves the day here. I mean, I personally really like it. I think, as we're talking about, I think it gives you that thick to thin without actually ever saying, without ever showing a thin element.
Thin element, yeah. Uses the negative space.
Because I read it nicely.
And unlike the Kia application, it actually successfully uses a typographic application that is still legible. And like Grant said, what's brilliant about this is there is a lot of iconography that's weaved into the typography. So things like the arrow of the N and the arrow of the K can be used as icon in icon application, and then the circle of the O. Like there's a lot of little elements you can take out and make quite a lot of entertaining graphics with. So definitely for something so simple, it has a lot of flexibility, a lot of usability. Are we ready for our last two?
Absolutely.
Let's set us off.
Oh, I'm gonna knock my own phone over. It's gonna. Okay, so this first brand, we're looking now more at iconography and how to reshape it. These are two logos that are being shown to us by the website Under Construction in their brand new section. So if you haven't heard of that, it's a really cool library of brand refreshes. The first one I'm going to pop into is a pretty well-known digital marketing brand, or a social media marketing brand. If you don't know it, you will now, because I'm putting it on the screen. Hootsuite. And I didn't even know they had rebranded. It is actually Daniel that brought this one to the table. And I thought, like, personally, I think it kind of looks like a reversed rebrand. I kind of feel like the old logo feels more modern with more use cases than the new logo. The new logo kind of reminds me of if you've ever seen Robin Hood, the Disney one, where Robin is a fox. It reminds me of the owl from that. Now that I've told you, if you've ever seen it, you'll never unsee it. But he
Oh, yeah.
kind of looks like the owl from that. What do you guys think? What comes to mind when you see it? And do you think it's a revolution from where they were, or an evolution?
Go, Daniel.
I mean, I'm kind of on your side where I'm kind of, I mean, cool, neat, but why? Like,
Yeah.
what value? I mean,
Mm.
for a tech type company, you definitely are seeing a lot more character to this,
Mhm.
which I applaud in that nature. But I just kind of go like, what is the? I just was trying to look up to see
The thinking.
why did this happen?
I think that's not a good question to ask if that's
Let me
your.
step in. Yeah, I got a different opinion altogether in the sense that I do like the icon of the old logo, but I understand the icon of the new logo. But if you just talk about typography, I really do enjoy the new font. I love the fact that it just looks smooth on the eyes. It looks a little bit more boot-ish. It's just got a little bit of stretch to it. I think nice positioning, nice weight. I love all the styles of each font. I think it's pretty good. When we talk about
This U gets me though. I don't know why it gets so thin and nothing else even gets even close. That is like the only thing that is so slender in the font. That really
it doesn't make sense for that one character. I do agree with you.
Sorry, I cut in there.
The owl is sort of the advent of the NFT in the sense of characterization was sort of coming to the front in the sense of people having mascots, people getting into animatics. So when an NFT was sort of showing its head and sort of going in that artistic way, you've got to realize that we haven't had an artistic boom for over 40 years. So a lot of businesses were really considering getting characterization and mascots in their business with a view of getting to animatics, a little bit more playfulness, a little bit more eye-catching appeal. And I think what they really just tried to do was, as a digital company, they just tried to turn that relevancy into how things are going to be transcending going forward in that particular market. So I think they took something quite cold, even though I enjoyed it, and they try to give it a little bit more life in the sense that it's a little bit more playful.
Look, if they do that, if they start putting that character out on the road and he's walking around, giant mascot head of an owl, I could see that being really funky and cool. I hope that's the direction they're taking, because I think this guy would be adorable if you see him out on the street. Go up and get a photo with him. It'll be good fun.
Yeah, but you also realize that animation and video is becoming 40% of the communication channel. So therefore, by show and tell, sort of captivates the market to that, or what the other people were doing could be a way of creating a differentiation between that and their competitors.
Yeah, augmented reality. See the owl on the street through your phone.
And collect, especially if it's NFT.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's go.
This is the last one, last little segment of the show. Here we go. This is a nice little modernization of a classic. Here we are, 1904's Canada Dry. Look, this is interesting because it kind of does dovetail off what you were saying earlier, Grant, which is this flattening and simplification of branding, especially for web application. And I think, Daniel, you also mentioned a little bit of this, of the driving factors around that, around rendering complex graphics. And, especially from a merchandise and product perspective, it's a lot easier to take the flat logos and reproduce them than trying to adapt a lot of gradients and shadow and light, etc. And there's a whole planet back here. What's who wants to take it first? Who wants to jump in?
I'll kick it off. I mean, I don't know if other people feel otherwise, but I don't care. I think there's just so much great stuff about it. I mean, it's got a lot of great character. It feels like it's a high-class craft beverage. I know Canada Dry is not, but like this says to me that it is a high-class craft beverage rather than what the old one was, which was like, the off-the-shelf basic brand.
Yeah, it feels like a cheap commercial beer versus a like a microbrew premium. You know, that's
And that
yeah.
and that little the little uh, serifs on the letters are really nice. Like
Yeah.
that R
Yep.
Yeah,
is
yeah, little curve.
I actually just only noticed that
So
as
here's
you were
one of the things I
speaking,
look at.
the typography is significantly
Yeah,
different. Mm.
I
Yeah,
like
jumping in.
the crown. I like the shape. I'm not so sure I like the grid. I think the grid gives me oldie woldy, but gold color looks a little bit dull. But
Mm.
the bubbles on the left were a little bit playful. I think they've made this brand a little bit more serious. I do appreciate this, the size of the typography now, and I think it's well weighted. I think it's grown up, and I think
It's funny that you bring up the color because that was actually going to be one of my things. I kind of feel like it would be nice if it was a little more colorful,
agree.
just a little bit more punchy because it feels
Yeah.
very flat now. And that's not just comparing it to the old brand, but it is its own standalone. And now that you pointed out the old worldiness of the grid in the background, I can't stop seeing it.
I'm so tired of that. I've done so many of those in my life back in the 80s and 90s. I'm like, I can't do that grid anymore. And here it is again. So I'm like,
I wonder if it actually adds any value to the brand to have it in there. Like, what's the brand story or the brand message they're trying to tell by keeping or reinforcing that
I think he's trying to do it like a global kind of thing.
global feel to it.
Pretty much an Am feeling from it. Yeah.
but that's interesting that they felt that was
Important,
necessary to keep in there, and maybe that's a key element that they're a global brand. I think dealing with the idea of that pop, I think as soon as this goes on a metallic can, that gold becomes gold.
Gold, yes, true.
And it becomes nice. And also they're solving some visual vibration problems that happened in the original logo with changing the hue of that gold. And I think also increasing the overall nature of the gold takes it away from being a Christmas can, which it's always been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look at that since 1904 and how it is now, I quite enjoyed how it was previously. I think now it's just like it's an afterthought. I know it needs
specifically that messaging.
Yeah, the way it's styled. Two lines now. I think the way it was in one line and was quite nice.
A bit larger. Yeah, actually, I kind of agree. It almost looks like a mistake. Like if you were to look at a can at a distance, you wouldn't be able to see what it says. So it's almost like, well, then why even have it? Like, and is 1904 even that impressive, really? Like, I'm like,
it was really grown up. This was all about, in the sense that for over 100 years they've been producing, and of course 100 years is quite important in today's business. Here in Australia we've got Vegemite that's also just turned 100. And it's not loved by the rest of the world, but yeah.
But do you think when somebody's going out for a drink, they're like, oh man, I really want that 100-year-old Canada Dry. Like, I wouldn't take that new fresh dry off the shelf. I want that legacy of great dry. I don't know if it's a buying consideration, much like the globe on the logo. Is it a buying consideration when somebody goes to the shop? Like, I mean,
are they going to maybe come out with a premier line of their classic? They're with actual ginger now.
That would be kind of cool if they did that.
It is a very good possibility that they might be bringing out flavors, they might be bringing out colorants, they might be bringing out mixes, but you just try and increase sales and make themselves relevant again. Many brands have sort of found a new avenue of recipe to sort of bring to the market.
I think they could do that. We should call them, and we'll just call it Canada Classic with ginger,
Yeah.
Like we'll call it that. That'll be the brand. And since 1904.
Do you guys? So I mean, we see it out here, but it's like a Australian ginger ale that starts with a B.
Bundaberg?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm assuming that's a big brand out there that if at least made its way here.
It's not actually like it's not a conventional brand. Like you wouldn't go to every bar and every pub and see it.
Yeah.
But definitely your more like specialty pubs or microbrews and that kind of like microbrew focused pubs, they all have Bundaberg. But you can actually get it at convenience stores as well, which kind of takes it out of the alcohol only zones. So like it is definitely a very consumer friendly product here, Bundaberg. And they also have amazing other flavors too. They do a bunch of juice flavors and sparkling and stuff like that. Their whole range of product is phenomenal. I didn't even know it was out there. Is it?
Yeah. We can get them at World Market we'll see them. We'll see them in different places, but like, yeah,
That's
they're on that line of like more craft ginger beers.
Yeah. And they've really held that very, very strong in the brand. I don't think I think it would be detrimental if they changed that positioning.
Yeah.
Bundaberg ginger. I'm going to see if I can bring it up quickly. Then I can like flash it up before we close off there he is. This guy. This is the brand here. Present, share.
And their type is pretty fun. I mean,
yeah, it is. And that's what really gives it that
it's got a lot of character to it.
Feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah.
I can order it for you right now. What's the address, man? I'll just order it to your house.
Exactly. The only thing that I look at and I go like, again, I like simplification of stuff.
Yeah.
But like I look at all of it and I go like, why do we need those skeuomorphism barrels on there? Why can't you give me a simple illustrated version to represent the heritage of the brand?
Yes. I was thinking the exact same thing.
I'm so tired of that scroll. I'm like,
I think, there's definitely some nice, like, it's kind of like the font gives you that nice traditional, really classic feel, but they didn't match it up with those other two components. And you're right. I was thinking the exact same thing when I looked at it. I went, oh, how nice would it be if it was a really cool flat illustration, but kind of like, I don't even know how to say it, like Oldsworthy, like kind of like almost like a stamp, like an ink stamp of the barrels.
Yeah, it would be a woodcut style or single color.
All that extra value everyone got, a free fifth analysis of a brand. On that note, and these guys don't keep asking for more brand examples. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for making the time. I really appreciate it. And Grant, as always, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Grant, do you want to do any last words before I wrap this baby up?
Look, I've got to mention it, Bernard, that it was definitely some edutainment that was shared here today. How it is. But for the first time ever, that all three segments, we went over time. We actually ignored the clock because the subject was that intent. We've never had that before. We may have had it once or twice, but not all three shows. So we've really just blown out big time. But Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. We enjoyed your perspective. We enjoy your other side of the world wisdom. And at the end of the day, we look to learn as to how we can collaborate and make brands better and more valuable.
That's been my favorite thing hanging out with everybody is just hearing the amazing world that we live in, that I can be over here in the northern hemisphere and you guys can be in the southern hemisphere and we can literally be talking.
And complaining
complaining.
Man, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us again. Everybody who's jumped on the show, thank you very much for joining us. Please like, follow, share, comment. If you have suggestions on people you'd like to see on the show or controversial things you'd like to discuss on the show, like whether or not Rolex should rebrand, please send us a message and let us know. We're always happy to bring on more guests. We're always happy to unbundle things that are that you guys want to know and find out more information on. Till the next show, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you again, Daniel, from the OC Dino Creative. If you want to check out the work that they do, it's phenomenal. And Grant, I'll see you in Sydney.
See you in Sydney.
Awesome. See you later, guys.
Later.